Why don't you just meet me in the middle? I'm losing my mind just a little. Why don't you just meet me in the middle? And that's exactly it. We're talking about meeting in the middle and having, all the voices heard at the table. So starting with the student voice, it's really good to be strength-based and kind of know like that the teacher's listening to what I'm actually really good at, and being able to focus more on what I'm good at, because I always spent so much time thinking about what I wasn't good at. So I'm really good at humor, so I've done a lot more work with using comic strips to kind of help, and that's part of the transition plans. When I'm learning to go to a new classroom, I can turn it, they've turned it into a comic strip, so I know what what are some of the new expectations in the new classroom, and just knowing that like if I am struggling with some social interactions or cleanup time, that we can do some games and crafts, because that seems to be something else that I'm really good at and I enjoy doing. And then anchor charts when I'm trying to transition to another subject. What are the steps that I need to follow on, like the success criteria, and having that in a binder that I can kind of refer to is very helpful as well. Just check-ins before we're moving on to something else, make sure I have everything that I need. And then also just the advocacy skills in teaching me that it's okay to ask for help, and that it doesn't it's not an insult, it's not something wrong with me, it's something that everybody needs to do. And I really like how the teacher kind of talked about their how they use tools like their backup camera to parallel park, even though they're really nervous about doing it, they use those tools, and that when they have trouble reading, they take notes and stop and take notes, and how those strategies are really helpful. And it's just nice to know that you're not the only one that needs stuff, because that's the hard part, is feeling like you're different all the time. So it's just really helpful to feel like you're part of that conversation. And then with the technology, it's really helpful to write, to use the voice to text or the word predictors to kind of help get some of my thoughts out. So that would be more in the accommodation piece. But just, I think when transitions come up, it's hard with the unstructured time. So like stopping and role playing what's kind of happening and what we notice, kind of helping read those social cues has been really helpful. And then having that conversation on the spot with everybody, so that everybody can kind of learn from it, has been really helpful as well. And kind of just having that open circle discussion about, what are we noticing? What would be really helpful here? And focusing more on like sharing feelings and strategies, and appreciating people's input and validating it. So that was really important from a student's standpoint. As a parent, it's really good to know like who's going to be there prior to the meeting, what the goals are going to be, to have that conversation with the teachers before, just to kind of process everything that I'm hearing, and then be ready for the meeting. I think was really, really helpful, and knowing that it is a live document, because I don't want them to be stuck in this and be kind of held back because of it, but also knowing like, okay, they've worked on the strategy, it's really good, let's move on to the next part, and how it's always changing. And then really noticing, like recognizing that these are actually tools for their toolbox, and once they've learned those tools, they can add more in their box to kind of help with any challenging. It was really good that the teachers kind of did the work before the transition meeting, and you could see that they cared. They brought in some of the the pictures of them doing some of the work in the past. They talked about common phrases that we could use at home and at school, and things that have kind of already worked. They talked about this fidget that was really helpful when they were in the middle of doing something that was really loud and transition during cleanup time, and how that's effective. And they even brought another one for home. So you could tell that I felt good about my child being in a space where they care about. And then just knowing that that it is a constant, like I love how we were able to like reconnect a few times throughout the year, so that we can kind of share what we're noticing, and what kinds of things we both need to kind of work on next. And I love the idea of the ice cream party, because it was something for my child to look forward to, so it already started the positive environment for the school, and something that they were excited about to return to school. So lots of great things with that. From a teacher's standpoint, the commitment and compliance. It is a collective responsibility. It's data driven. So, using that 5-10 minutes at staff meetings to kind of pull through the data and look at, okay, what are some commonalities? What are some strategies? And being able to, do the literacy and numeracy monitoring, identify what are the strengths? Can we work on the strengths? What strategies can we implement, and where has the data taken us, and what's our next step after that? So really being, having that integrity around what we're doing and a plan so that we know where we're headed. Integrate the technology, but be able to teach, the safety around it, the boundaries around it, and not just be reliant on it. So for instance, if you're going to do, you're going to teach them how to do text to speech, they need to be able to figure out how to highlight it all and read it back to them so that they can make those changes and edit, follow how to use the tools for edit and grammar, but also, how can they take a text and read it back to them so they can, and how can they stop and start it so they can use some strategies with the technology, so that they have something that's a little bit more cognitively at their level, but also at their interests as well. And then just very much getting into that reflective practice, what is it, how can I resonate with this? How can I see that change? Because we're trying to shift beliefs so that we can change practices, and really kind of being the lead in that. So leading by all with all, and how that's super important, that we're showing, these are some of the things that we're doing, this is what's working. Be vulnerable and show that vulnerability, that listen, I'm taking this on, it's hard, and show those mistakes and the learning just like you would with your students, but also with the staff, so that they can see it, and show that how that reflectiveness comes in. My drive is good in a way because it's an hour each way for sure, sometimes more, and it kind of just on the way there it fuels me. Okay, this is the big idea. What did I notice from my students last day, and how could I take that, what they've really gravitated towards, and kind of incorporate that into the lesson? And then the students that are still having trouble understanding the concept, really looking at how could I incorporate that in a different way, what other modalities could I include so that they can they can learn it, and then share that as well with the staff, and discuss what other strategies could we do together, and how could we pull other students in on this learning, because it is a collective responsibility, and there might be other students that would also benefit from some of these similar strategies. So really, overall the transition is really to build their advocacy skills and their awareness, and the biggest thing is their self-awareness and what they're really good at and how to use that to guide their learning, but also to ensure that they are feeling successful and that they're feeling included. So bring them to the table in the discussions. Don't just hand them what they need to do but be very much an active part and participant in the journey.